Signs of the Southland, Sunday, October 22nd, 2023. We have a new guest on today's podcast, our newest writer, Maggie. Maggie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to From the Rumble Seat?
Yes. Hey, everyone. My name is Maggie. I am super excited to be here. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Gainesville, Georgia, and how I got here, both of my parents went to Georgia Tech. So I pretty much started going to football games when I was just a baby and haven't stopped ever since then. So been at Tech my entire life, and now I'm a student here. I'm a senior. So gonna May, which is really crazy. It feels like I just got, but yeah, been a fun almost 4 years.
Nice.
Maggie, this is going to be a very strange question, but Maggie, when did you start at Tech? I promise I'm
I
going somewhere with
started
this.
in fall of 2020.
Fall of 20? Okay, so I graduated in
Yes.
May
Okay.
of 19. So your entire college experience has been after I graduated, which now makes me feel very, very old. And I don't know. I'm gonna need some time to process that. Someone else ask her a question so I can mentally
Let's
recover from
let's
this.
clarify. This is a different Maggie. We do have two Maggies on staff now. We have Maggie Doster and Maggie Scroggs now. So that will be we will have both of them writing this winter. Especially once basketball gets going. So do not be confused by that. Also, Scroggs is the only active student I think we have now on staff, which will only last so long anyways. So but really good to have you. What is I think I asked this last week to Charles when he was here, but what's been your favorite Tech moment, whether it's sports or not sports, but just what when you think about just the idea of Tech, what comes to mind?
Oh, that's tough. Although, like I said, I've been going to football games since I was young. So I would say my favorite Tech memory, which we were not talking about this before we started, but Miracle on Techwood Drive was probably, I was there for that game. That was incredible. So, fun fact about that, my mom actually, like a year prior, had bought us Mr. Taylor Swift tickets, which were that night.
Oh,
And the game times I'll be announced. And of course, I was like, I'm going to the game. Like, I was like, so excited about it. And obviously, it was a great decision. It's probably that. And then my family, we all went to the Orange Bowl at 14.
nice.
So
That's awesome.
that was a fun one. But also while I've been at Tech, kind of non-football related, my so 2021, my sophomore year, when the Braves won the World Series, and like afterwards, just the campus went crazy and like
Oh yes.
didn't have class the next day, the parade on Friday, like all of that was so much fun just to be in Atlanta for that, and kind of everyone at Tech rallied together. So good times.
We were probably in the same crowd together at some point because I was in the middle of all that. And that got half of that story we can't say on air. So yeah.
Yes.
Hey, look, the FCC doesn't listen to every podcast, only some
No,
of them.
it's for legal reasons.
I was going to say, all I recall is that similar events happened after Tech beat number one UVA in 1990, from what I've heard. But I was long gone by then. I'm a
In 1990, I
congratulate myself.
imagine
No,
you were
no,
long
no,
gone
not
by
in
then.
I was long yet to arrive. That sounds weird to say it like that. Somebody else say something. I can't do this.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about this weekend in Georgia Tech football, which is far less, I think, funny and happy than I think where we were. Tech lost 38-23 to Boston College yesterday. Not a great day at the office for the Yellow Jackets. 3 Haynes King interceptions kind of decided this game, especially 2 of them late on in the game in the fourth quarter when it was tight. I believe the scoreline was 31-23 at that first pick. Maggie, as the newest member of the podcast, I'm going to go to you first. What did you see in this one? How did things fall apart for Tech late on in this game?
I think that's almost a question we all want the answer to, of why we just keep falling apart in the fourth quarter. I don't know, but yeah, I thought I thought first half looked decent. Third quarter, we came out pretty strong with the interception on Boston College's first drive. And then I think Haynes King that had his 71-yard run after that. But fourth quarter, I don't know why we keep falling apart. I think part of me is like, does this team know how to win? Do we know how to pull it together in the end? Because I mean, we've seen games like Louisville the second half, we fell apart, and Ole Miss and then we're within 7 and kind of fell apart. So just it was disappointing, but put it behind us, move on.
I feel like at some point it becomes like, I don't want to say demoralizing, but it's like it's the same story. And not that I mean, the fact that you're a new guest visitor attendee of this podcast and you're saying similar things to what the three of us have said kind of, I guess, validates the fact that I'm like, geez, there has to be some other sort of takeaway. But like, it's a game where Tech was favored. The numbers like Georgia Tech. It's not like this was, a wagon of a Boston College team rolling into town. There's a legitimate, reasonable expectation that Tech competes, and for 3 quarters they did. If you exclude that pick six, I think Tech, I would say, looked fairly convincing. Obviously, you don't want to miss an extra point, but going into the fourth quarter up, but really that same story that we've kind of seen all year. Jack, Akshay, do you guys have any thoughts there? Am I crazy? Because it feels like we're in Groundhog Day here.
I know, yeah. We're still in the pattern of alternating wins and losses every game, so that hasn't ended yet. Granted, the Miami one feels like a fluke and a half that's even a W at this point, and that's probably not even enough flukes to be given in that context. Still, it happened, and yeah, in that game, King also had a really boneheaded interception thrown into 3 guys that was just completely mysterious, and that should have kind of locked the game away too. Like, Miami just did not capitalize enough. And did the same thing today. Like, I was talking with Kurt, the radio guy, who was like, yeah, Texas A&M didn't play him because he threw too many interceptions. Like, it's not exactly a new thing for him to be suddenly turnover prone. In the post game conference, this was curious. Like, him and KJ Wallace both didn't necessarily like try to deflect blame, but I think they thought their effort didn't match the result, so to say. Like, on 2 of those interceptions, King thought like he didn't exactly try to force the ball too much to put it in a bad spot. The first interception was absolutely a fluke. That ball just somehow pinned to the cornerback's leg and arm like it was glued on or something. And then they'd have the pick six there, which is game changing a lot in that first half because that game is a score closer than it probably should have been. And then one of the interceptions, Boston College literally dropped. They catch it and then put it on the ground. And so they could have picked that one up. So there is some back and forth there, which I understand what he was coming from there. And then KJ Wallace thought they contained Castellanos pretty well, which I think in the first half you could say that, like, he wasn't scrambling too much, but then he kind of had what he wanted in the second half. And so if you gotta have a game plan, either a game plan that can last 4 quarters. I don't know if it's they are too tired after 4 quarters. They didn't practice on Friday because Key thought that's been a problem at home where they practice all day Friday and then they're just gassed by Saturday, which isn't the case on the road because you have to travel on Friday. And so they tried that out. I'm not going to blame it on that. Like, you got to execute when it's all said and done. And that's how they felt after the game. Like, they know they're good enough to do it. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And also on the coaching staff for not putting 10 guys out on the field multiple times, which hence is why we had some timeouts burned in very, very inopportune times.
Who do you think you are? Notre Dame versus Ohio State?
I know.
I have the most pivotal pick pulled up on the side of my monitor here. And just to diagram this out a little bit, Haynes King his pass protection breaks down almost immediately after the snap. He then decides to throw this into, let's count the amount of defenders, 1, 2, 3, double coverage with 2 receiver or triple coverage with 2 receivers in the same spot. And he knows that, and at least based on the broadcast angle, one of those defenders is underneath. Actually, both of the defenders, two of the three defenders are underneath the two receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So he undercooks the ball, thrown in a panicky manner after he's been pressured out of the pocket, which I do not believe any of those things
not good
lead to particular success. So
not good. And that was a big thing too. Is like the lines were not good enough for us. The second half offensive line was King did not have a lot of time to truly get himself calm in the pocket throughout that game. He was shaky in the first quarter, had to resort to them running the ball a lot. And it got a little bit better, I would say, by the end, but not enough better to where you could call our throwing game like properly functional. He's got Maggie saw, it seemed like every good play was when he scrambled or had a designed run instead of him actually trying to throw to somebody. Not having Singleton also didn't help.
Yeah, I think that is probably a fair thing to caveat. Singleton's a big part of that offense. And granted, there's some additions that were nice back into the passing game, but at the same time, I don't think you can really put this all on one guy. Not that you were, Jack, but I don't think this is really a one guy being out kind of.
Oh no, it's definitely not. It's definitely
situation. Yeah.
I mean, for Haynes King specifically, just to make sure that we get his stat line in here, 15 for 31, 204 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks, and an EPA per play number. This doesn't include one of the picks, which is on me, but EPA per play number of minus 0.15. It's not a great day at the office. Anytime you go sub 50% completion percentage, regardless, and your average yards per play, obviously, including the picks, is just under 7. So my takeaway from that is that they're not really having him throw particularly deep, and they are consistently, and he's consistently struggling to generate good pocket presence and he struggled to generate good pocket presence and good production through the passing game in this game. And I think that's also borne out by some of these most important plays and the big plays that we have on Game on Paper, right? One of the plays that's booing his EPA just even to that 0.15 mark or minus 0.15 mark is a 71-yard run for a touchdown in the middle of the third quarter.
That's also buoying his yards per play of 15.8 per rush attempt. But one thing I do want to not get too far away. We talk a lot about Georgia Tech on this because it's a Georgia Tech podcast, obviously. But I mean, Thomas Castellanos, not that he was crazy through the air, 16 for 28, but when he was making those completions, 8.82 yards per play on dropbacks, rush attempts, 9.85, basically 9.9 yards per play when he was using his legs. And granted, he had a couple long runs in there too, but 13 carries for 128 yards is a pretty robust, I'd say, stat line with his legs. Also of note, Kai Robichaux, 7.9 yards per play on the ground too. So it wasn't just the quarterback getting a couple long runs in there.
Yeah, Robichaux killed us at the end of that game too. That was just infuriating. He wasn't even listed on their depth chart. He was listed as their fourth running back.
So they rotated in all 4 running backs into this.
I don't know if 2 of them even played. Honestly, I don't think 2 of them played.
They had 3.
Somebody was out. Somebody was out.
Somebody was out. I forgot about this. Yes, that's correct. Someone was out.
I forget his name.
3 guys other than Castellanos registered carries. So Kai Robichaux, like we talked about, Nate Johnson had 1 carry for 3 yards, and Alex Broom 6 carries for 15. I think most of those Broom carries were towards the end of the game as well.
Yep.
I'm counting like 3 at the end there. He did also have 1 fumble, so that is important to mention.
Yeah, Maggie
as well.
How early in the fourth quarter did you ever have the sense of like, all right, time to go? Because after one of those touchdowns, the floodgates just opened for people leaving. Did you leave early? Like, was there a moment where you're like, all right, I'm just done?
I left right after the last Boston College touchdown.
Okay.
I think everyone kind of just picked up and left. But one thing I kind of wanted to point too was, I don't know if y'all remember in the Louisville game, Haynes King, we were driving and he fumbled in Louisville territory. And then the very next play, Gerard Jordan had like a 74-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Same thing happened. This drive, Haynes King threw a pick. The very next play, they had a touchdown. The very next play, right up the middle, just like that. So
it's like the wind were out of the sails. Ugh.
Yeah,
I know. It's like they just give up. But yeah, it was around. I don't remember if it was that one or if it was the 4th and 1. I don't remember which touchdown it was, but after one of those touchdowns,
I know what you're talking about. I was thinking about that 4th down because Boston College had 2 separate like tight 4th downs where they rolled up the exact same formation where they came out with one wide receiver out to the left, two tight ends on the left, and then they motioned them to the right. The first time they got one of them wide the heck open, like unguarded, and thankfully tackled him at the 3. Then they have the exact same situation again. And once again, somebody is so wide open. This time it's Castellanos himself just running it all the way to the end zone. So I don't like the fact that Tech saw the exact same formation with the exact same movement twice and did not adapt it all the second time. Like there was acres of space.
Yeah, were those the plays whenever we had 10 guys on the field? Because
that may have been one of those, actually. Yeah, there's a real chance. There's a real chance. Key didn't specify which ones, but I think one of those, like, what the hell was this timeouts was, I think on offense. I think it was when we called timeout and then punted when we had the ball for no reason. I think that was one of those timeouts.
I do want to actually talk about those 4th down decisions because I think at least if you take a look at the 4th down bot that we sometimes go back to, those are really good go decisions by Boston College.
They are.
I think the 4th and 1 at the plus 43, bot says go for it. That adds 2.3% win probability. Tied 4th and 1 from the Tech 23 from the plus 23 again adds 4.3% win probability to go for it in both of those situations. And especially that the one where it was tied, and I think this one was when Castellanos just ran for 12 yards and set Boston College up in the red zone. The second one, that game is on a knife edge at that point. If they go for it, their win probability goes up to 51%. Or if they go for it and succeed, their win probability goes up to 55%. Expected value there, 51%. And the field goal, the expected value is just 47%. So you can see how much of a jump it makes when you are aggressive in that sort of situation. I think we saw that a couple of times this weekend where teams maybe were erred on the side of being a little bit too conservative, a little bit too aggressive. I think one of the decisions that we saw in our chat was the Pitt game, where Pitt was a little bit too aggressive. But this is why you do these things, right? These are the margins that you win on. And I think this is a perfect example. Obviously, this is an example of where it worked out. Hopefully, there's another one coming up later this season where maybe it didn't work out, and we can talk about the counterfactual. But this is an example of why you do these things, why you take these risks, and how they can pay off if you succeed. Right? We don't know if Boston College is looking at these numbers, but this is an opportunity for us to reflect on this too. Right? Anything else before we move on, friends?
Well, we got homecoming this weekend, so the crowd was the highest. This was the largest attendance of the season at 35,656 people. So if you're complaining about people not showing up, this is at least we've gone on an upward trajectory every week. We've at least got that going for us. And we have a night game this week. So that usually means more people show up.
Jack, if I didn't already have this week's trivia question queued up in the data analysis results window, I would have some commentary on those attendances, specifically
they're not great. They're not elite.
No, they're terrible. They're terrible.
They're terrible. Every game. They've just gone up every game. More people are showing up to each game.
This is
the right direction.
This is some mega spin zone there, but it kind of gives me the door before we get into homecoming content to talk about something that I've heard from people in the internet world and from Rumble Seat Slack, different shades of this, of just to the extent of like, I would support the team, or why are there not more people in the stands? I, as a Tech consumer who is very invested in football and enjoys going to the game on Saturday, I'm pretty likely to go to games. I'll be straight up with that. I understand that there are people who are voting with their feet and not putting their butts in the seats and all that, as is their right. And I think games kind of like this, I don't want to say validate that, but it's tough to, like, I think, be not expectant of Tech fans or that kind of thing. But, it's Saturday. A lot of folks are coming from an hour, 2, 3, a flight away to get here and to support Tech. And I don't know. I think it's a self-defeating cycle at this point. And commentary on attendance. If it's your thing and you want to be there, so be it. Be there. Support on TV if that's your thing. So be it. But I don't know. The whole fans turning on fans, if you will, in terms of commentary about attendance is really grating on me. And I don't know, like you said, Maggie, like after that last touchdown, game's almost over. It's 2+ scores. All right. Well, that's ball game, I don't know. I just,
beat the rest
it wasn't
tomorrow.
I was going to say that wasn't a very coherent thought, but it's just something that's been on my mind, right? It's tough to see similar games play out in similar ways week after week after week. I don't know. I don't know. It's a beautiful weekend in Atlanta, and hopefully it'll be great this next weekend. And hopefully, Jack, that trend will continue. That you noted more people in the stands.
Butts and seats we talked about a lot about this in past podcasts where we're talking about the finances of Tech or the athletic department specifically and just the overall trends. And butts and seats solves so many problems, even if you're losing. A lot.
Just look at Nebraska.
Yeah. Like, I know, like there are terrible teams that draw more than us because they love their team enough to the point where it's also just like tradition for them just to always be there. Tech is a little bit different in that it's not a college town. It's just so many other factors that go into why we don't draw 80,000 when we're 3-9 or something like that. And that's just our unique situation. But at the same time, butts and seats solves all of this, at least in terms of it solves a lot of things. So as much as I know that you are correct here, Jake, and that it's when it sucks, why would you go? But at the same time, we have to keep going when it sucks.
I just think it's counterproductive to be yelling at people on Twitter or people in group chats about things like that.
Yeah, I would agree. With that.
That's more the point I was trying to get. Like, I'm going to be there. I like going. I hope other people like going too.
That is absolutely
but no. Kind of transitioning into, I guess, homecoming. We talked about the game time, right? This leaves a lot of opportunity for other homecoming related things in which Akshay might also be very knowledgeable about, such as, I don't know, mini 500 or rec parade, perhaps.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's take this opportunity to review the annual homecoming schedule. I thought we were going to do this later. I think it's literally in the notes for later, but now
let's just do
he's offered a proper segue. So let me pull up the times once again, because I was not prepared for him to do this. First up, Friday at 5:30. So this is Friday, October 27th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. That is the mini 500. I would recommend, if you are going to be in town, to be there around 5 o'clock, maybe 4:45, to situate yourself properly. It usually gets very crowded. Rec Club usually have scarves on sale, and they run out very quickly if you want those. So 4:45. What is the mini 500? Someone listening to this podcast for the first time might ask. Mr. Grant, TLDR, mini 500, what it be?
So for a little more than 50 years, Georgia Tech students really, and lately the Rec Club, actually I say lately, it's been like 5 decades now that they've been putting it on, but it is a modded tricycle race around Peter's parking deck, with one exception, but we don't have to talk about COVID times. Anyways, it is, gosh, is it 8 laps these days? I'm getting old. I forget.
Yes, it is. Yep. Seems of four riders, 2 laps each.
Yep, 2 laps each. Teams are generally, I think they limit it to like 50 or 60 teams. There's definitely more interest than that, but you got to cap it somewhere. 8 laps around the parking deck. fraternities, sororities, interest groups, residence halls, club sports teams, things like that. Research groups. I saw this made me proud. The mechanical engineering PhD students had a team, I think last year, the year before. That's fun. I like that. But anyways, 8 laps around the parking deck starts at 5:30 on the 27th. For those that are looking for a spot to watch the race, obviously start finish line is a good option. That's up by Hi-Fi along the west side of the parking deck, going up Freshman Hill. That can be a little bit of a slog, but usually good space there to get right up in front. But really that first stretch along the west side into the turn by the Beta and the ATO house, where the route starts to go downhill, usually I would say are pretty entertaining, and you get the benefit of a really strong crowd atmosphere over there. I'm pretty sure that if you counted all the people that go and watch, it'd probably be several thousands of people, not just one. So definitely a good way to get the weekend started out right.
Yeah, so that is 5:30 on Friday, and then we get into Saturday. Saturday's game day.
Hey, we got to plug surround sound for the band, 7:30 to 9, First Center. That's important too.
Okay, granted. Actually forgot about that. Good on you for remembering. So
you're welcome.
Now with surround sound at 7:30 to 9, you have your Friday night activities covered. What about Saturday morning, you might ask? What if you want to continue the weekend? Well, if you're a sicko, you can wake up at right around 7 a.m. and watch
6:30. If you're at 7, you're going to be late.
Wave? Is the first wave? No, as a spectator, not as a freshman spectator.
It says 6:30 on the Alumni Association website. I don't want somebody to show up and have the race be over.
Hold on. The alumni, as we say, it also says 6:30 on the Rec Club website, which I treat as the official source of truth. So 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, October 28th, is the freshman cake race. Mr. Grant, TLDR, freshman cake race. What is it? Why should people care?
Up until last week, it was the longest race I had ever run that was timed in my life. But it's about a half mile. Obviously, I've run more miles than that. I was the swimmer and all that. But anyways, longest timed race I had done before that. It's about, a half mile. It goes from 8th and Fowler, usually to the ballpark of Harrison Square, so the top of Freshman Hill. I've always enjoyed the view up Freshman Hill as people are trying to, run at 6:30 in the morning. But your mileage may vary. Again, start line is a good spot. Finish line's a good spot. I don't know. Got anything else that we can talk about? History. That one's probably got the most.
Yeah. Tell me about the origins of this one.
All right. So way back in the day, Georgia Tech, all men's school. Really needed to find some recruits for the cross country team and whatnot. Essentially, an open cross country run was founded. Faculty Wives Bake Cake, hence the cake name. George Griffin would be out there looking for folks to join his cross country team for years. Is tradition there. That being said, today everyone who runs gets a cupcake. No longer goes all the way to the waterworks on Hemp Hill and back. It's only a half mile, so a lot more doable if you're more water-based than land-based, i.e. myself. It's nice. It gets a good turnout, and walking is generally permitted as well. You see a lot of folks out there with like a nice big blanket or whatnot, but it's a good tradition. There's not really anything quite like it, especially in terms of the fact that you can really only do it as a first year. Mini 5, you get a couple shots at that. And I definitely recommend doing that too. If you're, say, a listener that still has the opportunity to take part in that as well. But yeah, it's pretty short. Only being a half mile, it's kind of done before you know it.
So that is on the morning of Saturday, the 28th. And then following that, just about what would you say, like 3 or 4 hours later, is Ramblin' Rec Parade right around, let me get the official time for everyone, at 9 a.m. on Saturday, October 28th is the Ramblin' Rec Parade. Mr. Grant, TLDR, Ramblin' Rec Parade, why should people come out and see it?
again, it used to be much longer. Before there were like real like paved roads and stuff that went to Athens, it was actually essentially cross country car race to Athens. The old Ford race, people would take junker cars and run them all the way up, 65 miles up to the school out east. But, due to safety, wartime gas restrictions a little bit later, all that good stuff played into making it what is essentially an oddball parade. You've got your fixed bodies, classic cars. You've got contraptions as well. My favorite are the contraptions, usually built by students, but they essentially have some sort of oddball mechanical motion, no internal combustion or anything like that. And lately, they've really been getting student organizations into it too. So the design build teams like the Solar Car, other groups that can parade a la the band or the cheer. So I've seen juggling, I think, a couple times there too. But
so juggling, there was the salsa club a couple years ago, which was pretty neat, honestly. My favorite contraption, I think, every year is the one with the bowling balls.
I thought that got banned.
I hope it got banned because it's hilariously dangerous, but that's in the spirit of the event, to be fair.
So for those who may not know, it was essentially a bowling ball powered contraption that involved lifting a ball all the way up, and then it would spiral down and the car would move forward, and then there'd be more bowling balls flying around.
Hilariously dangerous.
Hilariously dangerous sounds like the theme of multiple events here going on here.
It worked. That's the thing.
I think
unlike students in the Mini 500, I never saw that thing drive into a sewer. So, that's the trade-off there.
You're setting the bar particularly low. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that might have been something that they may just not wanted to do after COVID. I think I didn't see it in 21. So hopefully it's back, as it is fun. But again, still very hilariously dangerous, which is part of the fun, I guess. So that is at 9 a.m. on Saturday. And then obviously the football game is at 8 p.m. That night versus UNC. UNC may or may not be ranked by the time that you hear this podcast. So I don't know. But
I mentioned last week, in order to keep our streak up of beating 17th ranked teams or whatever, or not beating, but playing only 17th ranked teams, they were going to need to lose to Virginia. And Lordy, what happened here? They actually lost to Virginia.
I'm pretty sure they're 17th ranked too, because I was filling out our sheet. Hold on, I'm gonna check it. Why guess when you can check? Hold on.
It should be out by now. So
ESPN.
They are 17.
They are ranked 17.
Oh my God, we did it! We did it!
Wait, hold on. Wait. Released October 22nd. So this is
today.
This morning, but it lists them beating Miami. That's not what happened last night, is it?
They also don't have all the logos for every school at the AP poll, so I don't know if I trust them in terms of.
Yeah, no, it says 17th. They dropped 7 spots. That's what I'm seeing. That's correct.
Okay. Weird.
Good job, Jack.
Amazing.
Manifest.
I
manifesting.
Nailed it.
You're manifesting. There you go.
Okay. Well, that is something to look forward to then. That is all of the major homecoming events, your icon events for next weekend. It would be really fun if everyone turned out and came to watch it. Let's move on. Let's talk about everyone's favorite 13th ranked volleyball team on this podcast, the Georgia Tech volleyball team. Mr. Purdy, what was their schedule like this week? Let's start with the opening part of this weekend versus Duke.
Yes, we played the state of North Carolina in 2/3 of it that we can play in Duke and North Carolina. Both at home. This is the second half of our 4-game home stretch before we are in New York and Massachusetts next week. Duke and North Carolina are not relatively great volleyball schools at all. Duke at one point actually did receive votes, I was told, at some point this year in the coaches poll, so they're not as terrible as they usually are. North Carolina today, though, was a little bit better than normal. They've got some actual weapons that they were able to play out, but beyond that, these were both 4-setters that should have been 3-setters. Against Duke, we had a set. The second set, we hit only 103, so didn't win that. But the other 3 sets, what? Yeah, Jake, I know you're trying to.
I was going to say, I'm going to date myself here. UNC won the conference as recently as my freshman year. Wild how things changed there, because They're currently towards the bottom of the barrel in the ACC, but they've been scary in the past. I really don't know what happened because it was like you blink and then all of a sudden UNC's just like gone.
I was checking. Yeah, historically against Duke, we have a losing record, and at home we have a losing record against Duke in volleyball. Bianca Bertolino reached 100 aces in her career in the game, and Lordy knows she may hit she had 4 in the game, which is really really good for her. Bella D'Amico started for the first time in 4 or 5 matches. So Collier's finally feeling like she's got the trust in her to put her back in there. And today she started again against North Carolina, and she actually played much closer to her normal self. So she is slowly but surely getting back in the thick of things. What was promising so we win both these 3-1. I think there's not much to say there. We're going to hold our 13th to 11th span ranking somewhere in there. Mendez
good enough to host.
Good enough to host for now.
Yeah.
Mendez was really good against Duke. Today, both Otene and Bertolino had over 20 kills, and Mendez did not look good today. So people coming in as they needed to win us matches. What I did not like is that, well, at least what I liked against Duke is before the game, Liv Mogridge was warming up normally, which is what she hadn't done the last few weeks after she sprained her knee, because today we saw she usually wears leggings during the matches. She did not wear any today, and it revealed her knee brace that she's been wearing, I guess, for the last month-ish at this point. She was with them for the first part of warm-ups, which takes place the 20 to 40 minute range before the match. Then they go back in the locker room, get in their uniforms, come back out. Except she did not come back out with them for the last stretch of warm-ups, which was caught my eye, and then she wasn't on the bench for the first set. Then I finally spotted her during the second set in sweatpants, still with her jersey on, and she was very visibly limping in between sets when they changed benches. So I am very worried that she may have re-aggravated that knee. And if she did, it seemed, I was talking with Kurt beforehand, and our the radio guy, best guesses we had, it was like a sprain kind of thing, because the timetable of now she seems like she's gearing back up to play and she's didn't need surgery or anything like that. So if she re-aggravated it today, and if that resets the clock, she ain't playing against Louisville in a couple weeks. Probably wasn't going to anyways, but yeah.
Yeah, I do want to add some color for the Duke game in particular. That set we dropped to Duke was a 25-23 affair. I wouldn't say that they necessarily blew us out of the water. Honestly, the difference there was Tech racked up 8 errors to Duke's 4. It was one of the few sets this whole weekend that we were not quite as crisp. I would not say that leads to any alarm bells in my head. Sometimes those things just kind of happen. Duke is, I'd say, pretty okay is a fair way to put it.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
83 in RPI. It's gonna happen. You drop a set every once in a while. That's kind of how it goes. A couple things to call out from them in general, though. Their Jess Robinson had 15 kills, and Carrie Keefe also had 11. Robinson was pretty good, but I think we kind of handled her for the most part. She wasn't particularly efficient, and if you can, neutralize a team's best player out of the game, that's generally going to set you up for reasonable success. I thought Larissa Mendez looked sharp, not only against Duke, but I thought she looked, reasonably all right against UNC as well. A little bit lower.
She hit under 100 today.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I saw that fourth set in most detail.
Fourth set, we hit 19. We hit 20 kills as a team.
That's probably why.
And 17 of them were by Bertolino or Otene. So
yeah, Otene had one amazing play today. We don't have to get into that. It's probably a rights violation of some sort. But if you see a highlight from the UNC match, it'll probably be that one. Is that, Jack, the one I'm talking about is kind of late.
She had a couple.
Like a rebound over the net. She just smoked it. I don't know. This is not good podcast content.
But she had a couple.
Podcasting is a visual medium, Jake.
She had a couple really smart drop shots that she did today. She had one of those shots where she deflected it off the block, so where she knew it was going to land out. She also was just hitting the ball as hard as she has all season, which is really good. I think that speaks more to D'Amico getting her sets right. Finally, for the first time in a while, and giving her good opportunities to get up. Same for Bertolino. She had a lot more just free no holding back swings that we haven't had in a while. I would say North Carolina's block wasn't necessarily all that great, which is probably why we had as many of those today. Anyone with a good block can kind of get around us pretty well, and they do not have that. So North Carolina also only won by 2 points in their set too. So we lost the 2 sets this weekend by a combined 4 points.
Yeah. Also interesting to see Tech out blocking a team. We had 10 today. To UNC.
So weird.
Probably because their best middle blocker from last year is, Liv Mogridge, who we just spent 5 minutes talking about how she's injured. But, you'd think that would contribute to our blocks. But you get the point.
If she was playing against us right now, well, then that means I don't know who plays middle blocker for us in that case. But if we had to play against Mogridge, it would not be easy. It would be rough for us.
I do want to say before we kind of move on out of volleyball a little bit, just kind of slight preview of the upcoming teams. Boston College, currently 104 in RPI, very similar to UNC. Syracuse, though, holy moly, they turned over their complete staff and almost their whole roster I think that's 2 seasons ago now, right, Akshay? I don't know if you remember this, but kind of late in the year, late towards the start of the season, they had a big exodus, but they're currently 252nd in RPI.
No.
This is one of the worst Power 5 RPIs in any sport I've ever seen.
They are currently 2-18.
They play a good enough of a schedule that this should basically be impossible.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I get Louisville basketball was pretty not great last year, but this is...
They were bad. Yeah, they were bad.
No,
but here's the thing. Louisville men's basketball being bad is funny. That's the difference, because it's Louisville men's basketball. Syracuse volleyball being bad is just kind of a tragedy in and of itself.
It's just whatever. Yeah. The ACC currently has 2 top 10 teams and a bottom 10 team.
Pretty much, which is wild. I do want to say the conference slate in terms of tournament looking, if you will, is about as good as it's looked in a while. Conference, I mean, you hear it every time you watch on TV or anytime Michelle gets interviewed or anything like that. The conference is as good as it's been. Georgia Tech's been a little bit notorious between 2016 and 19 for having pretty good teams get snubbed, but anyone who finishes in a top 5, top 6 position in the conference now is going to be comfortable in terms of RPI to be tournament quality. So keep an eye on that. It's just not, you can't lose these games this week. That's where I'm at with this. Conference is good. These upcoming games, got to win straight up.
You probably want to make quick work of these teams. Not even just not lose, just make very quick work of
win
both of
these sets
programs
as fast as possible so no one gets hurt. Just get out. The fewer points, the better, purely for that reason. And so they can fly home quicker.
Yeah, because right after these 2 games, that next Friday is Louisville at home at 7 p.m. So
Maggie, this is one of those games you have to wait 2 hours for to get in the building, because it's going to be like that.
It's going to be
like that.
It's going to be.
Why didn't they have this at McCamish? That's my question.
If I gander over at the basketball schedule, I bet there's a game on the same day. Let's find out.
I don't think
we got to preview men's basketball and women's basketball here at some point.
Shoot. That was supposed to be today. Oops. My bad.
I'll write something up tomorrow night. Usually we record this on Monday night for all those people.
Maybe
out there in
that's right. We're
podcast
going to do extra episodes for that. I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah. We'll talk off air.
Okay,
right.
So actually I was wrong. There is no basketball on the 3rd, but there is one. I guess there's games on the 1st and the 2nd, so I don't know. Maybe they just didn't want to use the facility. I don't know. These kinds of things are weird. But yeah, I think the consensus is just beat the crap out of Boston College and Syracuse, come back uninjured, and then prepare for Louisville at home at the end of the week. Capiche?
Capiche.
We'll be back to talk about swimming and diving and tennis right after this short break.
Indeed, we will. And as always, this short break is brought to you by Section 103. Section 103 is Georgia Tech's premier place to to acquire and receive Georgia Tech apparel, I'm going to plug my newest Section 103 get. It is the white Ramblin' Wreck shirt. The good news is if you're kind of all shirted out for the year, they also have Ramblin' Wreck in a long sleeve t-shirt and script hoodie as well. I mentioned this not only because I bought it very recently, and it is a very soft and very nice shirt, but because I saw a ton of people wearing it on Saturday at Bobby Dodd. So that was a lot of fun. Not only I, but presumably several others have also been enjoying their shirts. So check them out. Of course, they've got basically every Tech logo in all sorts of blue, but also, of course, white and gold. So check out Tech football, Tech, just Georgia Tech, as well as volleyball, basketball, and baseball related goods. You can find them at section103.com and at section 103 on Twitter, as well as always free shipping on orders over $70.
Welcome back to Scions of the Southland for October 22nd. Mr. Grant, let's take a look at swimming and diving. And this is kind of where I just say the name swimming and diving and let you roll with it, isn't it?
Yes. This is my meat and potatoes here.
Okay, hold on. This is not only your meat and potatoes, but maybe your gravy, your like black, like blueberry pie. Let's add a couple more elements here to this meal.
Yeah. So one thing we said a couple weeks ago is that I circled this meet on the calendar and said, hey, we don't know a lot about this team yet. Couple familiar faces, couple, folks that we had back in the building, lost Denise Ton. Let's see how they fare. They're going to Athens. As much as I hate to say it, Athens is good. They're going to Emory. As much as I hate to say it, Emory's a very good D3 program, but still a D3 program. Florida State, the only ACC team that we get a dual meet against this year, but also one that has historically been right in line with Georgia Tech. And the coaches agreed with me this year. And they see these guys a lot more, the guys and gals a lot more than I do, especially recently. So the fact that Florida State was ranked number 24 in the men's side of the coaches poll, and Tech was number 23. One, it didn't shock me because tradition. It's almost always like this. And two, meant that this was indeed, and because these rankings came out this week, was indeed going to be a good yardstick. Of course, being a dual meet, lots of event winners. Mert Kilavus, familiar face in the 1,000 free. Antonio Romero in the 200 fly. Burke Saka in the 200 and 100 back. Of note, 200 and 100 back, Tech swept both events, 1, 2, 3. But also newer faces, or at least faces we don't talk about quite as much on the podcast, including Joao Caballero in the 100 breast. Max Fowler, yet again, freshman Max Fowler, won both diving events. So great to see there. I'm burying the lead, though. Swimming and diving, despite all these first, seconds, thirds I mentioned, came up just 3 points short in the end against Florida State. Like I said, coming into this, number 23 and number 24 in the country. Going into the last event, Tech actually led by a handful of points. To the best I can figure, based on my back of the napkin math, it was 7 points after they did in fact go 1, 2, 3 in that 200 IM. Sorry, in addition to the 200 back I mentioned earlier. But yes, Burke Saka, Niles Bogner, and Antonio Romero, 1, 2, 3 in the 200 IM. Florida State, however, not only got first, but also got third in the 400 free relay to just narrowly edge past the men by about 3 points. Why is that important, you might ask? They only score the top three in your relays. Relays are also worth quite a bit more. Not too much in dual meets at the NCAA level, but they are worth more. And the fact that Florida State took home first and third gave them 13 points in the events to Tech's 4. That is a 9-point difference in a meet that was ultimately 3. And if Tech had, which they were barely edged out for that third place spot, if they had grabbed those 2 points for third place, swing the other way to Georgia Tech, and that's the meet. Honestly, that's about as best as you can ask for a swim meet to come down to. It's the very final race. Just a little bit unfortunate that Florida State, as always, a little bit deeper in those sprint freestyle events. Akshay, that was a lot of talking. Do you have any commentary?
I don't, but I will set the stage for you for the women's side of this meet so you can catch your breath a little bit. The Georgia Tech women won versus Florida State, 160 to 140. Mr. Grant, I assume now that I've given you 5 seconds to breathe, you have more oxygen to talk about the event winners for
I do.
on the women's side.
I do. And this is where I need to be effusive in my praise. The Georgia Tech women, I think we kind of get to the point where we get in the season, we get into the grind, and we wind up talking about a couple key individual performers. We've had this podcast 6 years now, and I think we get to the point where it's just kind of a grind, right? And the fact that they dispatched by 20 points a high quality Power 5 team, granted it's in their own building, but yeah, no, between the event winners, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different women win individual events. Allison Brown, a sophomore, a name that I don't think we've mentioned yet. So don't know where she came from, but cool. Love that.
Lassiter High School, by the way.
Lassiter. Okay, cool. We did look that up. Thank you.
I'm good at podcasting sometimes.
Allison Brown won both distance freestyle events. Great to see. Zora Ripkova won both short distance freestyle events. She's come a long way to round out that freestyle core there, especially without Denise Ertan. Vivian Rothwell won the 100 back. Mackenzie Campbell, a familiar face in the 200 fly. Tech went 1, 2, 3 in the 1 meter, led by Anna Bradescu, another familiar face. So great to see there as well. And not only that, I think the biggest thing that we've said is not just winning dual meets or being competitive in dual meets, it's winning relays. Because relays, especially the invite championship format, those points are in the relays. And Georgia Tech, they won the 400-yard freestyle relay by 0.7 of a second. So nothing too crazy, but they went 1-3 in the 400 free. And that's a pretty nice result. I don't know. Just winning against a team that's traditionally had a pretty good sprint freestyle core. I think that's something you'll take any day of the week, right?
Yes, I agree. Your comment about Denise Ertan reminded me that we never actually looked up where she went in the transfer portal. So I've done a quick Google, and it looks like that she's now at Arizona State as of July. It looks like she went there because of old U.S. Olympic friend Bob Bowman, who apparently worked with the Turkish Olympic team in 2016. So,
well, that explains that connection. I do want to make one more note before I forget. I didn't know that the Miami men also came to this meet to dive exhibition. Go figure. They didn't get any points scored. They would have won the 1 meter. They would have gone 1-2 in the men's 1 meter, and then in the 3 meter they would have. Actually, no, they would not have won the 3 meter. But definitely interesting that they were here. They were like, no, you can't score. Sorry, but you can come and dive with us. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of amusing. For those that don't recall, Miami's men's swimming and diving program is just a diving program. Go figure. But they were here, just the Miami men's divers. I guess they were just like, all right, 2 of you and the coach get on a plane and see you in a couple days.
When you're Miami, you have money to burn like that, especially when you can't, kneel on a kneel to end a game.
It's got to be tough it's got to be tough to schedule during dual meet type season, especially without having a full program. You basically just kind of have to call up other teams and be like, hey, you got a meet we can come to. Can we compete, please? But anyways,
you have to just ask for invitations. Just show up to meets. You have the schedule. Just show up and be like, we're diving today. Sorry.
Hey guys, I hear Georgia Tech's having a meet. Let's see if we can sneak on in. No. Next up, Georgia Tech heads to College Station, Texas, for the Texas A&M Georgia Tech apparently triangle meet. It's a 2-day meet out in College Station. I will say both Texas is ranked 7th, and Texas A&M is ranked 13th on the men's side. The Texas women are 2nd overall, and the A&M women are 25th overall. So it could be a long weekend, but get in some good races against some good talent. Really impressed that they pulled off this early schedule has honestly been super compelling with a great D3 program in Emory, balancing out some very intriguing Division I competition. All these programs have been kind of lights out, if I do say so.
It's been a very competitive schedule, and that's not something that I think we say often about the swim program, because sometimes they'll schedule SCAD, which is not an NCAA program. So I think it's fair to give credit where credit is due.
No, I'm super
especially
impressed.
getting on Texas's radar, right?
Well, and
a program that's generating a lot of Olympic talent.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think getting in some good races against some good teams, even if it doesn't translate to wins and losses, certainly helps. You test your athletes. It's the same reason why, you play good football and good basketball games and all that. It's not an RPI sport, but if you shave off those 2/10, that can be the difference between not getting a cut and getting a cut, or finishing in a B final versus an A, and those points stack up. So just a
playing up
different
to
way
your
to
competition.
see. Exactly. It's a different way to frame the same things that we see in match sports, or sports that people may quote unquote be more familiar with, if you know what I mean.
Let's talk about one of those match sports next up, shall we? ITA regionals for Georgia Tech women's tennis. They were down in Florida, I believe. All of these results are through Sunday, or I guess through today. I think they're still working on some of them. But where do you want to start with? Yeah. I think a literal page of tennis results that you've written out for me.
This is far too much tennis for me to go into all of these in detail. So I'm going to summarize it down into a couple key bullets. 1, Kylie Bilchev and Carol Lee played through to Sunday in singles. Carol Lee is the top singles seed. Kylie Bilchev was the 3 seed, who's upset by Rachel Galis of Florida, the number 12 overall seed, 6-1, 6-4 earlier today, but went 4-1 on the weekend. Still great to see 4-1 on the weekend. Bilchev is number 28 nationally. Carol Lee is number 9 nationally, and at the time I was writing this was about an hour into a match against Emily de Oliveira, also of UF. To that point, Carol Lee had been 4-0 on the weekend. That's point A. Point B, very limited doubles play relative to singles play. But Bilchev and Lee had played Anna Arcadiano and Victoria Allen of FSU. They lost 7-3 in a tiebreak. It was 8-7 overall. Given Roach and Kate Cherburua lost to Miami's Zini Nong and Isabella Fenning, 8-6. Those are both tight matches. Nothing too crazy there. Like I said, very limited doubles play. Tech had two athletes not qualify for the main draw. Kate Cherburua, however, played out of the qualifying draw and into the singles main draw. Pretty mixed bag in the main draw in terms of main draw results. Given Roach, Mahak Jain, Kate Cherburua. They did. Wait, no, I lied. Mahak went 1-1, but the other two went 0-1. Alejandra Cruz went 1-1 on the weekend. Whew. Okay, those were my 3 main points. We had some singles, we had some athletes playing today, and we had some doubles. Anything else before we go on?
There was an update on the Carol Lee game in progress. She lost 6-3, 6-1 to Emily de Oliveira from Florida. I think that is kind of all we have to say about tennis. I mean, it's still a fall season. They're still kind of getting into the groove of playing preparing for their competition in the spring. But ITAs is still important, and they're still progressing through the tournament pretty well. So I don't think there's much definitive to say.
It's tournament season. They'll play either out at Nationals or in Coral Gables next week.
Sounds good. Good stuff. I think that's about all of the Georgia Tech sports content for us to discuss. So it's time to look at the ACC football tasting menu, Mr. Grant. With Jack not here, it's time for us to just go back and forth and back and forth. Let's start with, and let me make sure that I have the right page pulled up. Let's start with Thursday night football is back. Syracuse plays at Virginia Tech. That is a Virginia Tech favored by 3. This is at 7:30 on ESPN. You're up first.
Oh, Virginia Tech's gonna put them through a meat grinder. They've wanted these Thursday games back for a long time. Apparently, it's a tradition of theirs to play one Thursday.
They built a program on this.
Yeah,
they built
exactly.
a program on playing
that's
on
how they rose
Thursday.
to national prominence. That's a lot of voodoo. I'm not touching cues. not that I put money on this kind of stuff, but that's a big neon arrow that says Virginia Tech vibes. That's what I see there.
Noon on Saturday on ABC, Florida State visits Wake Forest. Florida State favored by 20. I think that one is cut and dry, in my opinion. Florida State probably by a 20-point margin. Let's go to noon on ACC Network in Chestnut Hill. Boston College hosts 1-6 UConn. Boston College is a 12-point home favorite, Mr. Grant.
I like that they play this non-con game. I don't like UConn's chances.
2 p.m. on, I guess, your local RSN, because there's no TV network listed. Clemson is favored by 10 points at NC State. Both of these teams are 4-3. The world has completely gone mad. Clemson is now terrible. In some ways, the world has completely fixed itself. What say you?
Yeah, I still think Clemson's a pretty good team. I don't know about lines and things like that, but also I didn't see a TV channel on this when I put it on the shot sheet, so not sure how they're watching it. I don't know if it's CW or what, but Clemson, I don't know, coming off a loss, even though it's on the road, I still think I lean towards Dabo Swinney and the boys.
It's allegedly supposed to rain that day at NC State, so could be a real spooky one. 3:30 on NBC, Pitt at Notre Dame. Notre Dame favored by 17.5. I mean, again, pretty cut and dry. I don't think we need to talk about that one too much. But since I let you do two in a row, I'll do two in a row. 3:30 on ESPN at Cardinal Stadium in Louisville, Kentucky. Number 18 Louisville hosts number 20 Duke. Louisville's favored by 4 points at home. This is a toughie. This is a toughie. Both of these teams are actually good, and this isn't a basketball game. They're like legitimately good football teams.
The interesting thing, I think, is that it feels like Louisville's home crowd has been particularly strong at night. I don't know if there's certain atmosphere to it, but that said, it's in Louisville's building. I think you got to give them some credence for that. They're both coming off tough losses, but I don't know. Louisville off a bye too, might lean that way. Oh wait, I did this on purpose. Riley Leonard's out again, is he not?
Yes.
Might be tough sledding for Duke the rest of the way. It's Louisville.
The final game on our shot sheet, 3:30 on ACC Network, Virginia at Miami, in a game that I already thought had been played, and I already thought that Miami had fumbled the bag for. So
wasn't that last year? I think that was last year.
All of these games just flow together at this point. Miami's favored by 18 points at home. It's supposed to be 83 and sunny, as it always is in Miami, except when it's a hurricane outside. Mr. Grant, give me your pick.
Yeah, both these teams are coming off compelling wins. I'm more confident in Miami to add to that ledger.
You know, they have the same record in conference.
That's funny to me. Good for them.
That's hysterical. That's legitimately hysterical. Give me your sicko picks of the week.
Yeah, I will read Jack's as well. His is the directional Eastern versus Western Michigan at 1 p.m. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Mine is UMass versus Army, simply because the entire Northeast is playing each other this weekend in football. Yeah, no. Neither UMass nor Army seem to be particularly good. It is in Army's building. Maybe that's interesting. But also fall colors along the Hudson. That should at least be a good atmospheric event for this fairly close pairing of nearby foes.
Is that one on CBSN?
I think so. Army's on there a lot. I have closed the window, so your guess is.
Hold on, I got it. It is on CBSN. Yes, that is a nooner.
All right, fair enough. They get
stuff.
The Army on the CBSSN a lot, I think. But
yeah, I think. Well, they're not in a conference. That might just be their own TV deal.
Yeah, probably.
Who knows? TV, college football on TV is so broken these days. But let's stop talking about existential threats to the sport and talk about trivia, Mr. Grant. It's only us today in the booth. So what do you have for me specifically?
See, you spent enough time listening to me in another life talking about football and Georgia Tech related
Hold
football.
on. In another life, it's still in this one. Let's not get it twisted.
You might know the answers to these. One of them, maybe not, but I'm sure you know who all time. It's our trivia. Who all time is Georgia Tech's most played homecoming opponent? Do you not?
Yeah, it's Duke.
Yeah, it's 16.
It's Duke. Yeah, okay. I was scared for a second.
16 wins and 24 attempts against Duke. Duke is by far the most. Do you know who's second?
Clemson?
Nope. Georgia Tech has played Clemson a few times on homecoming, actually. They are 3-2 all time against Clemson, but they are 6-1 all time against Tulane on homecoming. That was an on again, off again annual type situation for a while there. So Georgia Tech and Tulane, also very frequent homecoming opponent. Georgia Tech all time is undefeated against 14 homecoming opponents. 11 of them they've only played once. Probably the most famous of this one-time additions is the Florida State Miracle on Techwood. Do you know who the 3 opponents Georgia Tech is undefeated against that they've played more than once on homecoming? I guarantee you're not going to get one. Guarantee that.
Let's see. Who have they played recently that they've beaten? They beat Wake Forest one year on homecoming recently.
We are, I believe, 3-4 all time. 3-1 against Wake Forest on homecoming.
Give me some search criteria here in my brain. Give me a couple hints.
Yeah. So 2 of the 3 are ACC members. One is an SEC legacy.
Oh, SEC legacy.
Currently still a member. I shouldn't say that they're legacy, but I don't think we played them since we were both in the SEC.
Okay. Let's double back. You said 2 are currently ACC members. I'm going to throw out Virginia.
We have played them more times on homecoming than both of these teams, but all time against Virginia, Georgia Tech does have 2 losses against Virginia on homecoming for a 4-2 record.
Boston College?
Nope, never played Boston College on homecoming.
Well, this is just going to end in me reading out the entire list of ACC teams. So
I'll give you the SEC. I'll give you the SEC one and tell you that the both the ACC ones were founding ACC members. The SEC team is a 2-0 record against Florida.
That's bizarre to me.
It is bizarre. The other 2 founding ACC members. Why might this be relevant? He says,
UNC.
Wondering aloud. UNC. We are 4-0 all time against UNC on homecoming. That is Tech's largest undefeated. So 4 wins and 0 losses. NC State is the other at 3-0. Georgia Tech has losing records against just 3 teams on homecoming. All 3 of them, they are 0-1 against Alabama and BYU, 0-2 against Kentucky. All right, I got one more question for you. All time, there's exactly 1 Georgia Tech coach with a losing record on homecoming. Who is it?
The previous regime, I assume.
I don't do this to dunk on Jeff Collins, but yes, he went 0-3 on homecoming. He is the only Georgia Tech coach not only to never win a homecoming game, but to be under 500. He also, by default, has this distinction that he is the only Georgia Tech coach to have a negative points differential in homecoming games. Brent Key won by 3 last year, so he has a +3. Everyone else goes up from there. You had Bill Lewis, who was 2-0. Bill Fulcher, who was also 2-0. Bobby Ross, he had a winning record and a positive differential. I do say all of this to let you know that there were actually two coaches that were not only undefeated on homecoming, but won more than 2 games, those being Chan Gailey, who went 6-0 all-time in homecoming games, and Bud Carson, who was 5-0. Other relevant folks to call out, you had Bill Curry, who went 4-3, Bobby Dodd, who was 12-5 and 1, by far the highest differential, though, because 12 wins is a lot of wins. By far the most. Paul Johnson, of note, was 8-3. George O'Leary 6-2. Pepper Rogers 5-1, rounding us out.
I want to add some color to your statement about Jeff Collins, because I was curious about which games that he lost on homecoming, and I have now pulled them up. November 2nd, 2019 versus Pittsburgh, loss 20-10. Didn't play one
game, or was that the next year?
It was the handshake game was the next year, but it wasn't a homecoming game.
Gotcha. Okay.
October 30th, 2021 versus Virginia Tech, loss 26-17.
Oh, that's not the one. Okay, I know.
And then, he got fired last year, so he only barely played 2.
No. You forgot 2020.
No, there was no homecoming in 2020.
Yeah, there was.
There were events, but there wasn't a designated game.
As somebody who ran the homecoming events, there was certainly homecoming, and that game was a 77-3 loss to number 1.
Oh, it was that one? They deemed it homecoming?
Uh-huh.
It's not listed as homecoming in Wikipedia. Thus, I refuse to believe that it was.
It was listed as homecoming, though, in the media guide.
Bizarre. I don't know why you would make that choice.
Again, I was there. I saw it with my own eyes.
I live tweeted that game. I know it. I also watched it with my own eyes. I was very disappointed.
Man.
Actually, disappointed doesn't even begin to describe it. I think a part of my soul died on that day. But that's kind of the bargain that you make with this sports franchise. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. And I think that is it. Once we get to talking about existential dread, that is a sign that we are done for the day. Mr. Grant, thank you for joining me today. Mr. Purdy and Ms. Scroggs, also thank you for joining us today. Mr. Grant, lead us out.
Yes, as always, you can find us at FromTheRumbleSeat.com. We post a lot of content, columns, football and non-football alike, as well as analysis, recaps, results, and ways to interact via, game threads and mailbags and things like that. If you ever have any feedback for us, you can comment on those, but you can also email us from therumbleseat@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog, at JakeGrant98, and at Jack Nicholas for Mr. Purdy. You can find Section 103 at Section 103 on Twitter as well, and section103.com. Check them out. Soft shirts, they're great. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. You can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are distributed. As always, tell your friends. We appreciate the love there. And as always, good night, good luck, and go, Jack.